What's up guys, today we're going to be making a quick video about the LG G8. This was requested and this is a phone that I still really like to this day. This phone got the Android 11 update. That was its last major OS update. We know LG has left the market. So if you are interested in getting an LG phone for a main phone, I would especially get a V60 or a Velvet just to make sure that you're getting updates. But the G8 still makes a pretty good backup phone or secondary phone, and I understand in other countries these phones are extremely cheap, so I wanted to go over them because you might end up using it as your main phone. It's still very usable even as a main phone. These days, if you do want to use it for, a backup phone or main phone, then they're trending for like 132, so you can find them on eBay for probably cheaper, probably like $100. This is a really good phone, and the first thing that stood out to me when I picked my G8 back up is the screen on here is just really nice, man. It's a really nice screen. So it's actually got a POLED display. It's HDR10 and it's 6.1 inches, so it's pretty easy to one-hand this phone. But it's a 1440p display with a very high PPI of 564. So this screen just looks crazy good. Really good, nice, vibrant colors on here as well too. And I absolutely love the screen on here. I still think it looks awesome watching content and pretty much doing anything on this screen. I think the only thing that's really aged about the screen is that there's no high refresh rate, but it's a very smooth 60 hertz panel as well too. But I'm telling you, man, the icons and everything, it just looks super sharp, super vibrant. That's the first thing you'll probably notice when you pick this phone up. Really nice display from LG. Also, like I said, this phone got the Android 11 update and that was it. So it's not going to get any more updates. And also the build quality on here also is just really awesome. So it feels really good in the hand. It's one of my favorite feeling phones in the hand. This and actually the LG G7 is actually one of my favorite feeling phones of all time. I think that phone is perfect in terms of like the weight and how it feels. This is almost pretty close. It's just a little bit heavier than the G7. But what's really cool about these LG phones, let me get a wipe down, is that LG was sort of, I think, has a futuristic design here because they have the flat camera, so it makes the phones look really sleek and like modern still from the back. And like I said, I think phones eventually are going to try to go for that design where it's just completely flat. Now it does make for a slippery phone, but it is one of the phones that you can actually type on and it's like flat, so it's not bouncing and stuff like that. But like I said, it is like very slippery. But if you put a case on it, it solves that problem. Also, what's really nice about this phone is that you get a Google Assistant button on the left hand side, which is really useful. And yeah, I love the buttons on this phone. Very solid, very nice and clicky. Another thing with the hardware is that the G8 actually has a headphone jack with a quad DAC. So this is the reason why a lot of people like to keep these LG phones, is because of the Hi-Fi quad DAC. You turn that on, you put in a pretty nice pair of headphones, and man, you get a crazy good audio experience out of this phone. Just wireless headphones just can't match, the quad DAC yet. So it's just an awesome thing, especially if you're into audio and stuff like that. You'll really appreciate that because, again, not a lot of phones have quad DAC or headphone jack in general. So a lot of people appreciate that, especially people like me who actually lose wireless earbuds a lot. I lose them a lot. I lost my other pair at the gym. But yeah, so I absolutely love it. The design, it is still feels very premium, glass and metal. It's IP68 dust and water resistant as well too. And yeah, I absolutely love it, guys. Alright, so I do want to talk about the specs on here because the G8 still has the Snapdragon 855 and then it also has the Adreno 640. You also have micro SD card support, and then 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM, and then you have UFS 2.1 storage on here. Basically, the G8 still flies through video games like it's nothing. The 855 chip, like I said, guys, is still extremely efficient. I actually ran a full gaming test on this phone once, and I'm going to redo a lot of my gaming tests for you guys real soon. But yeah, this phone performance wise is still, it's not missing a beat. And not just with gaming, pretty much just navigating the phone, bouncing in and out of applications. It's still a very smooth experience. I really don't have any issue with the performance on this phone still, which is pretty sweet because for $132, you're not going to find, a lot of phones that are going to be able to play, PUBG HDR Extreme at, very consistent frame rates, Call of Duty, very good high graphics. Also, this was able to play Fortnite at the time as well too, which is pretty cool. So it just does a great job with performance. I have not noticed a performance hit yet with this chip. So I'm really impressed with Snapdragon 855, man. It's doing a great job. Now, when LG released this phone, it had a ton of like little tricks up its sleeve. Like this phone does have actually pretty good Face ID. It has better Face ID than a lot of your like normal Android phones and stuff like that, but it does have like a real like actual security if I can get it. Yeah, it does have real like Face ID, and the fingerprint scanner on the back is physical. It works really well, very fast as well too. But this also has hand ID as well too, so it's able to like recognize your hand and it can unlock it from there, which was, you could say, gimmicky at the time. I thought it was kind of cool, but I never really used it, so yeah, I guess you could kind of say it was a little gimmicky. But yeah, it's still, it was there. It was a cool thing to show off to people. Also, guys, this phone also has stereo, or not technically a stereo speaker. So we're gonna actually go in and play some music. Like, it's got it, but it's, so yeah, the speaker is under the glass. It's still kind of loud. Now, the thing about this speaker, why I was disappointed with this one coming from the G7, was because the G7 just with one speaker sounds way better, way more fuller than this speaker. Now, this is a pretty decent stereo speaker, don't get me wrong, but the decision to put like the speaker under the glass or whatever, because you can see there's like nothing there, so it's like they got some sort of technology to where it's coming out, but it just doesn't sound that great. But yeah, it sounds fine, but just it's like actually like a downgrade if you've ever heard the G7 speaker. But it sounds fine. This doesn't sound as full to me, honestly. But the speaker is fine. You have NFC, like I said, as well too. So all the bells and whistles are here. Plus, again, the headphone jack, as always, really sweet to have. Alright, so I want to talk about the cameras on the G8. The cameras are pretty decent. I took a couple shots with this phone, and I was pretty impressed with the camera still to this day, man. The cameras on here are really not that bad. Like, yes, compared to new phones, the coloring can be a little off depending on what you're taking a picture of, but you can honestly fix a lot of that with photo editing. But again, I know a lot of people don't want to go back and forth edit photos. But in good lighting, man, this thing takes great photos. You really don't have to edit photos at all. It's just sort of sometimes indoors with certain type of colors. It just sort of gets the color wrong a little bit. But man, outdoors, this phone does a really good job. Dynamic range still looks really good. Close-up shots look great. Good depth of field, good detail. Like I said, outdoor colors it really gets colors really natural when it's outdoors, which is something that I've always really liked. But other than that, the G8's cameras are actually pretty fine here. They've aged pretty well, again, considering this price point as well too. But yeah, so, I think the cameras are fine. Video is fine. I think it actually will give a lot of budget phones a run for their money as well too. Like, those really cheap phones at like $200. I think this takes, better pictures in my opinion. Lastly, with the battery life. So battery life has always been a pretty interesting thing with the G8. So this phone does not have crazy good battery life, but the battery life is not bad at all. It's actually pretty decent. I can get 6 hours of screen on time out of this phone pretty easily. So considering the size of the phone, like I said, it's not the biggest phone, right? And it does have somewhat of a small battery at 3,500 milliamps. So again, not crazy good battery life, but you could definitely squeeze a day out of this phone. Surprisingly, it does have wireless charging as well too, and 21-watt wired charging. So yeah, the G8, man, it's a pretty nice phone for people who like these sort of want a smaller phone and you want a headphone jack with a quad DAC. I think it makes a great backup phone. Honestly, it's pretty solid for that. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.